to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And we are back once again into Sunday afternoon, and we are tucked away in the war room somewhere in the high desert of southern Idaho. And joining me today is Magnum. Say hi, Magnum.
Good afternoon.
And Eli.
Howdy.
Howdy. So, nice weather, huh? And you went out and did some shooting today.
I did. I laid out in the cow poop of the desert. And
nice.
it wasn't overly cold, little drafty though, but yeah, got out there, took my son out and got some trigger time today.
Are you getting him all like prepared for deer hunting?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're just because I have my 9-year-old and I'm actually starting to do the same thing.
Yeah, he's super excited about it. We're shooting shotgun shells at 50 yards with a 22. And
oh, fun.
He's pegging them like crazy, so I think he's ready.
I got my pellet gun, and I've need to order that scope. I've got it on my Amazon list, and I need to get that. And I think, he's got a 22 as well, but I think this pellet gun would be a good one for him just to figure out a scope and be cheaper. And we could, I could get him on a table or get him to lay prone or sit at a bench or something down here, and he could get all dialed in. I mean, in all honesty, I'd love for the kid to get a deer this year, but he's never gone before. But I'll just get him going through the motions and learning stuff and prepare him. And then if we go hunting and he sees a deer, great, he can shoot it. If not, I think he'll just have fun going and thinking that he's, if he sees a deer, he's going to shoot it. But God, he's 9, right? He's still little, and finding something, it's going to have to be like my other kids, where I use like a monopod and hold it for him when they because that's the way it's going to have to be. There's no way he's going to be able to hold anything up. It's going to tip him over. It's going to be front heavy. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of we'll see how that works out.
Bipod and prone shooting. You can start it in that.
Well, that, and I think what I might do is he may just go after we'll just use the AR. And I think that's going to be a little easier for him, a little lighter for him. And I think that's the way that we're going to go. So I think I'm going to get another rifle scope. I'm going to get some other optics on that AR as well, but I'm going to switch it out come hunting season and just put a rifle scope on there and be good to go.
I think a better solution, you need 2 ARs.
I have an AR and a half in there.
That's all right. We'll sit down. We'll build you a lightweight one for your son.
I've got
the Gucci gear on it. It'll be good.
I need to pull out I have an 80% lower that I finished, and I need to find. I got a bag of guts. The whole lower parts. I don't know where I put it. I can't find it anywhere, and I think and I said I finished off that 80% lower, and I might have to do some Dremel. I'll holler at you because we might have to do. I can get the stuff back in there, but I think I might have to do some fine tuning with a Dremel tool.
Cool. On
the inside of there. You game?
I'm awesome.
You like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Dremel's my favorite.
Because I'm going to end up. Yeah, it's not going to go well for me because I'm going to get impatient in about 10 minutes, and I'm going to go. Oh, it's not going together. So, and Eli is going to go hunting for the first time this year.
Yeah, that's the plan. Let's do it.
Yeah, he's going to try to shoot something.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
So I think you're going to go ahead and just run on that the hunter's passport.
Yeah.
Cheap. That'll be your first year. It's there. I know you want to hunt probably continually, other years. You might as well just do it the cheap way first.
When's that open up?
Oh, hunting won't open up till fall.
Okay, so that's when.
But now's the time to get out with you. I know you had a problem. You need to locate your rifle.
Yeah.
You need to get it out. We need to go through it and make sure it's good to go. You need to get some ammo now. Don't wait to buy it a week before because it may not be here.
Yeah.
That was a big struggle this year for everyone. Is they couldn't find their ammo, and it was all out. And then people started buying like 8-9 boxes at a time, and then you remember fell off the shelf, like you couldn't find it. So get it, and we can shoot it. And I know some gravel pits that we can go to, whatever. We can get it all figured out. But you have a scope, so we have to get that all dialed in and bore sighted, and
You're all mounted up and everything good to go.
It came with it on it, didn't it?
No, I had to put it on.
Okay. So there might be some adjustment we need to make.
Yeah. Might need some
we
adjustment.
talk about that after.
Yeah.
I got the tools and equipment for it, so we can get all leveled up for you.
Yeah. So that'll be cool. And hunting season. It's not even spring yet. But we are talking about hunting season again.
We still tag rabbits right now.
You can shoot all kinds of stuff right now. So I need to get I want to get that pellet gun up and going because I actually shot that thing. It was a couple different types of scopes on it. I took your word, but I was still going to try, right? Yeah, even a bolt action rifle scope on that thing does not. It works. It holds like 3 shots and then you're off.
Yeah, it's
because the recoil impulse is different?
So the recoil impulse on an air rifle, especially a Springer, runs in 2 directions. So yeah, like your normal rifle is basically just pushing it backwards, and all of your internals for a normal scope are set up for that, right?
Right.
A piston-driven gun drives the air through there through a heavy spring, and then that spring, just like in an AR or even an AK platform, has a tendency to break some scopes because the movement of the spring continues to slosh back and forth.
Yeah.
And the reticle is not designed to do 2 different directions.
I'll be honest, I believed you, but I didn't believe you. So I had to try. Because when you just think about it, you think, well, there's no way that'll work. It has to work, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, we found out the hard way. My dad really, really loves, pellet guns.
Yeah.
And he's got some high-powered 22 caliber ones. He's getting my kids into shooting them. We have literally broken 7 or 8 scopes before we finally learned that you can't do that, and you have to find certain ones.
That's the crap one that came off of it. That thing's garbage. It's absolute garbage.
That came off of it?
The scope of that was on it when I bought it.
Oh, nice. Will it hold 0 at all?
No.
Oh,
no, it's horrible. It was broke before I got it out of the box. You shot the pellet gun. It's fun.
Yeah, it is.
We were shooting the tree.
Yeah.
Did you get the one with the suppressor or without the suppressor?
I don't know. I think it's got the big fat suppressor looking thing on the end of it. The whole barrel is big.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. We actually have one of each version, and
it still seems loud.
I didn't think that suppressor worked as well as it does.
Yeah,
we got one without it, and we were shooting in the backyard.
Correct.
Yeah, it sounded like 22 going off. We couldn't shoot it in the yard no more.
Oh yeah, because you live in town.
I'm in town.
Yeah, you're in town. So that's crazy. But report. I have to report. I did, and I have. You guys know I've talked to you. I did pull the trigger on that ordering my gun. And I get this little thing, and it says that I'm supposed to, from Langdon, and it's my order confirmation, and I got a little button here. I can check order status. It hasn't moved. It says order placed on January 8th. Last update, January 8th. So as far as, so I was wondering when I get this gun, and I was doing some looking. Yeah, the package that I bought, 4 to 8 weeks.
My personal experience with Langdon, though, you may just end up with a surprise in a week or 2.
I hope so.
I had a Beretta done for them.
How long did they say it should take?
6 to 8 weeks. It should have been out. I had it back in 2 weeks. It just showed up at the house. I was like, oh my goodness. I was super stoked.
That's how you keep your customers happy, right? You got to overestimate when you're going to get it.
Well, yeah.
Just like when you go into a restaurant. Hey, it's going to be half an hour. That way, and when it's ready in 10 minutes, you're like, oh, wow, I love this place.
So we'll see. I
think you're going to be pleasantly surprised because, like, you get this reputation from certain gun manufacturers like Wilson Combat, Langdon Tactical, Nighthawk Customs. You get these expectations of these guns that are $1,200, $1,500. And you go, man, how much difference is there really? And then you get it in your hand and you're like, it is worth every penny I ever spent. So.
I am super stoked. I am. And what I've seen about this is you guys are going to have to help me create this, right? Because what I've seen is, you think about this gun that I've ordered and then I go online, you get kind of want to get like all jacked up and excited about it. I'm like on YouTube, like looking for reviews on the, you can find reviews on the P30, but as far as the P30 LEM trigger, Langdon tactical version, there's like 2. Literally, I'm like, I I was like, told my wife, I'm going to make a freaking review on this.
Yeah.
I mean, just for fun, but man, I'm so excited to get this gun.
Yeah, it is going to be awesome. The LEM triggers with HK, I mean, unless you're in the HK circle, you almost never hear about them.
Yeah, and the guy explained it. I think the way he explains it, I think I understand it, but he explained it as, you have striker fired, then you have double single, where the LEM triggers like a single double.
Yeah.
And so if that makes any sense to you, but it I don't know.
So essentially how it works, when you rack the slide on it, it locks your system into almost a single action, right?
Yeah.
The trigger still actuates the hammer, but it's just the hammer spring. All of the other stuff is pre-cocked. So your take-up is like 2 pounds, and your brake is like 1.25 pounds.
Yeah, because this thing's supposed to come in at like 3.5 pounds. The trigger. I'm freaking stoked.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
But then after you shoot it once, if you let it all the way up past the trigger reset, then it's double action, right? No.
So the only time the double action comes into play is if you have, say, it doesn't fire, right?
Okay, that's it.
So
That's it.
If it's a dead stick, then you get full about 10 pounds. Coming from Langdon, it's going to be super smooth.
Oh yeah.
It won't. You might get an 8-pound trigger pull. The one that I built with Gray Guns parts.
Yeah.
I got an 8.5-pound trigger, double action trigger pull out of it. Langdon will probably do better than me because they're better at me than that stuff.
Right.
But it's basically like that second strike capability. But anytime that slide is cycled, you're essentially back into that single double.
And what I'm excited about too is that they were putting that Gray Guns trigger in there, so instead of being that overly curved deal, it's like flat, but it's so far out. They say, and from what I've seen, is when you pull it up and you fire it and you come to reset, it's like straight up and down. You're just barely moving it. It's going to be pretty. They say actually people with short fingers don't like it, but I don't think I'm going to have that problem.
I actually like mine because I did that Gray Gun straight trigger on mine.
Right.
I did not like it when it was in full double action mode on that thing. Even though I smoothed it out, it was just really cockeyed to get a hold of. But in single action, wow, I love that thing.
Right.
It was so nice.
I need to get another shelf like this because I'm getting a crook in my neck here trying to see everybody.
Like trying to watch late night TV.
Well,
for one.
I'm trying to keep lined up with the microphone, and I've been trying to solve this forever, and I just need another. I'll figure it out.
Just scoot over here next to Eli next time that we're. Just have to look in one direction.
Yeah. Still, right here would be great. So we ain't no Joe Rogan setup in here. I can tell you that much right now.
Are you able to get a longer mic pole that would be able to kind of?
Well, the thing is this is really unbalanced. When I move it wants to freaking. It's a nice mic, but this is all. The rest of this is just bull crap. So, anyhow, I'm excited about that gun, and everyone will know about it when I get it. Because, I posted a picture on Facebook of it today just because I look at it. And I think what I'm going to do is when I get it in, I have to have those. I have a grip problem. I don't have a strong grip. It's because I broke the back of my hand at one point, and I think I'm going to try out. If it doesn't work, I'll just rip them off and put my regular Hogue grip back on there. But I think I'm going to try those Talon grips. And they've got the ones that feel like sandpaper, and then they've got another version that's kind of a rubbery type coating, and they call it the Pro version. And so I might it's like $20, so I might buy that and give that a try, and not have to go with that big massive rubber grip. Because honestly, it's kind of I like it, but it's kind of a pain in the butt when it comes to concealed carrying it because your shirt kind of catches on it. Because it's just you've shot my gun. It's like you're holding a softball anyway.
Yeah, that thing is terrible on there.
It works for me, but so I might try it. But I think it's a Hogue grip, and it just kind of looks hokey, I think. So we're gonna try to keep it with the sexy look. We got to look like the little Porsche.
So we were talking about factory triggers and stuff a little offline.
Yeah. We talk about all kinds of stuff before we fired. We had a whole nother podcast before we fired the podcast up.
So that Langdon is coming out with. I mean, they advertised it was around 4, but. I seriously doubt you're going to reach that because when my Beretta came back, it was literally
nice.
Single action was like 1.79, and it's super crisp, super fast.
I'm going to appendix carry that thing.
Hey, put your thumb on the back, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
But That being said, when the common knowledge is what is it? Factory trigger or don't change your trigger weights out. That sort of thing. What do you? What are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, when I first started this whole concealed carry thing long time ago, right? And I've talked about this a lot lately, and we had a whole episode about me and online gun forums and the interesting people I met, or interesting people that met me, one of the two. But they're still watching you. They're still watching me. But it's there's all these basic things that you hear, right? And one of the things is, when you dress up your gun, don't put Punisher skulls on them. Don't do this. Don't do that. And, you hear that. And why not? Because, they could be used against you in a court, right? Don't carry, like when you carry your defensive ammo, carry good defensive rounds that you purchased at a store, not ones that you hand loaded. Because they could blame you and say that you were crafting the killing bullet in your basement because you were looking for someone to kill. I mean, that's what they say.
They say, but I actually know the forensic data on that, why they do that. Because when you load at home, essentially, you're picking different powders and factory loading,
sure,
and they don't have a reference to look at. So say if your powder burns up fast, right, and you say you shot somebody at 3 feet away, but the only data they have is from factory defensive loading. So you used an HST bullet, but you ran it out of something that's a faster burning powder. Those powder burns that end up on the person can say, hey, no, they were actually further away and you weren't in danger. Right. So basically using factory ammo just gives them a reference when they go to prosecution to say, okay, this matches up with the forensic data that we found. When you said it was 3 feet or 4 feet, they can actually find the disbursement and recreate that in a lab.
Right.
It's where you can't generally do that if you hand load.
Well, and and here's the thing too is, I mean, my hand loads are typically pretty good, but they've had problems. I mean, everyone who hand loads has issue, right? The quality control you think should be there, but it's not necessarily there. And so I'm just going to go purchase something that I know is going to be way more up in quality than what I can load, right? And the science and the technology is there, and that's what I'm going to go with when I shoot. But that was one of the things you always heard about. Another thing was you never want to change out the sights. You never want to, anything, right? Or you never want to change out the trigger. You want the factory trigger. And I've taken, Mag 40 class for a bunch of classes, but one of the ones that really kind of got into this was the Mag 40 class with Masad Ayub. And he was big on that. I mean, he was big on that. Don't change out your trigger. And here's the thing: when you go to shoot, you want to be accurate, and you can learn any trigger. You can absolutely learn any trigger. And for a long time, I was of the same mindset: don't change your trigger out. But you can get better triggers. Why not? Why not make it so you can shoot the gun better and more accurate, especially if you're trying to save your family's life or you're trying to save your life. So I don't really go by that anymore because I think there's a lot of shit triggers out there from the factory. What's your thoughts on it?
I've got a lot of thoughts, but since Eli's had the law enforcement background, what have you seen?
They gave you guys shit triggers, didn't they?
What works? what has worked in law enforcement as far as like a training curve? You guys got stuck with stock triggers. Were you allowed to change anything, or?
It was stock triggers. We could change some things. I had to go to the armory though and get it approved. Any alterations we made. As far as the legality aspect of it, I would say, yeah, like Todd was saying, if it's about protecting your family, do that first, and then basically like how you explained it, right? If it comes down to like a jury or whatever, like just explain yourself, right? It was you right. Made these alterations for the protection of your family. Right?
But I also think you do need to understand that there's going to be, if you have to use your firearm in a self-defense situation, right, there is a chance. Well, there's always a chance. And it does go to court. You are going to have some attorney in there trying to make you look like a absolute horrible person. And they could say the same thing they could say about you reloading your own defensive ammo. Well, he created this gun so it was easier to shoot, so he could get more rounds off, so he could kill people. And they're going to try and trash you, and they're going to try to make you look absolutely horrible. I mean, they will, but make it make it effective for you to shoot, right? Effective for you to use. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
If you protected your family, ultimately,
You've
dealing with the
done right.
consequences after, you deal with it. But if your family's still alive and breathing, then
Sure, that's the main goal.
serve this
From what
purpose.
I've understood of it over the years, it wasn't about if you had an inexperienced prosecutor, they would look at that. They would call it the hair trigger concept, that sort of thing. If they couldn't get a murder or a second degree murder, then the idea was to get you on a conviction of manslaughter, right? So you didn't mean to kill the guy, but you put this thing in your gun and it just, made you the faulty party. And so now they get a conviction. And generally that comes with one that's looking for a judgeship or one that's looking to get in the election because, right, it's a conviction count at that point.
Yeah.
When they hit the election cycle, they can go, hey, I put 48, felons behind bars for gun crimes. It didn't matter whether it was an accidental shooting or it was just ruled as an accidental shooting or, you didn't intend to kill them. That's why, that line always comes up, you intended to stop the attack.
You wanted to stop the threat.
Yeah, you didn't want to kill them. You didn't, oh God, I didn't mean to kill them because that'll be, what you say will be used against you in a court of law. My personal take on triggers, I think if you don't train a lot, a heavier trigger is probably the smarter thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I agree.
You get that idea of that, you need to get the trigger feel. You need to understand how the gun works. However, like Todd was saying, if you can put a mechanism in there that's number one, safe, two, that you train on, and it makes it easier to shoot that firearm more accurately, then I don't care what a gun FUD says about having, you can't shoot a heavy trigger. I don't need to shoot a heavy trigger. If I can shoot, dime-sized groups, or I can shoot the same hole at 50 paces and do it easily, and yet you're going fast and hitting the 10 ring with a stock trigger, and it's easier for me to do it. Why would I not want to do that?
Well, yeah.
I think it's a lot like vehicles. The more we talk, the more I see a lot of similarities between firearms and vehicles. So same kind of concept, right? If you're just starting off as a driver, right, and you get a basic vehicle that you're practicing with, don't run off and try to adjust the gas pedal or the brakes or anything, right? Get used to driving the vehicle. And as you get more and more comfortable, if you find that something is better suited for how you drive it or how you fire it, then that's when you make those alterations. But if you're getting started in something, just practice with the basic things that may inhibit you in a way, but also prevent you from making some mistakes. So learn first, practice, and then, as you get better at it and you feel like, well, now I just want to be as efficient as possible, that's when you might change the trigger.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump in too and say that, if you had a gun and you've had it for a while and you decide you want to go ahead and do better on the trigger and you want to put a better trigger in an Apex or whatever it might be, right? With that comes responsibility. So you're going to have a lighter trigger. And hopefully I would imagine, this isn't everyone, but I would imagine that if you get to the point of wanting to put a better trigger in, it's because you have gone out and you've trained, you've used that gun, you know the trigger, you've learned it, and now it's time to go to the next level. And I think, but when you put in that better trigger, like I said, it comes with another layer of responsibility. When you use that gun, when you draw that gun and you're drawing that gun to fire it, right, you need to know that trigger inside and out. And not just where you're going to, you always need to know when you're going to be able to, break the shot, right? But you need to be able to have so much control on it that if you absolutely had to, and you drew that gun down on someone and you're pressing back on that trigger, that you can stop yourself, that you can hold it there and you could possibly let up off of it if you absolutely have to. And with a better trigger, that becomes more of a fine line, and you really have to be able to learn that. And you have to, let's talk about this too, your safety needs to be top notch. You can't be playing around with it. No. You can't be messing around. You got to obey those safety rules. But I think you got to understand that trigger inside and out. Now, there's when I teach people to draw a firearm in class, we do it dry. We do it without a gun, then we do it with an unloaded gun, and it gets to a point where I teach them that, and it's going to be hard. I can't demonstrate this because I can't. You'll know what I'm talking about. Possibly you will too. I'm sure you will. But I want to show, and no one's going to watch me. But as you draw that gun, right, and you drop that elbow, and it makes that gun, drives that gun, points it forward, right. if you absolutely had to, you can engage that target right there.
Yeah.
And when it's all about drawing your firearm and firing your firearm too, there's a timing thing, right? So when you drop your elbow and level that gun out and you're bringing it in front to meet your support hand and you're driving that gun out, there comes a point where your finger needs to be on that trigger. And as you drive that gun out, you're taking up the slack in that trigger. So you're right there and ready to fire if you absolutely have to. And with a more finely tuned trigger or a lighter trigger, there's a definite line right there. And people need to understand that, and they need to train and practice so they're really proficient at that.
And I think too that, I mean, you highlight this in your classes, and it's something I don't think people really take advantage and listen to understand, is getting that grip on the gun first.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean tightening your grip as you're putting your finger on the trigger, because that is where you get the ND, right?
Yes.
And that's where a heavier trigger actually comes in place, where, you know, they can take it up to the wall, but then they've got 3 or 4 pounds to break it off the wall.
Yeah.
Again, most people don't shoot off the wall either. And that's, again, training.
Mm-hmm.
Find somebody to train you how to do it.
Yeah.
Figure out where the wall is. Your press doesn't start as soon as your finger gets on the trigger. It starts at the wall.
At the wall. Yeah.
You know, so your grip needs to be at the tension it's supposed to be when you're ready to fire before you start making that press to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you know, the 3 amigos on the bottom of the hand aren't altering the sight picture at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you're only going to get that through training.
Yeah.
You got to get out and do it, you know.
And, you know, we've talked about this before, and I mean, you know, when you get your support hand on that gun and you're driving it out, we've got something we call the clamshell or the nutcracker, right? And when it's loose up front, and when you're driving it up, that's when everything starts to tighten up, as that drive out. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
That's how I do it.
I tighten up the whole grip, but as far as my firing grips goes, it's in the holster. My firing grip starts at the crux of the thumb and the bird finger, right?
Right.
And so I've got that front to grip, that front to rear pliers type press and grip.
Right, and you should.
And draw it, and that's already at where it should be. That second hand comes in and starts applying that additional pressure.
Exactly, yeah.
And locking it up, but it's not my firing hand. It's the other hand that's crunching up
and
the rest of that pressure. That way my
Yeah.
trigger finger stays consistent.
And that's what I meant. You just explained it way better. You know what I meant. I'm sure you knew what I meant. But I mean, so when I teach people that, right, and we do it with an unloaded gun, and we'll do that in the classroom, right? An unloaded gun, cleared gun, and we know the dry fire. First, we start off, because it makes people a little nervous. At first, we start off, you know, drive it out there, get your sight picture, and take the dry fire. And then after we get all those, and I know they're not going to aim the gun at themselves, we keep it unloaded, and then I say, okay, we'll get on the trigger right here, and let's learn that. Let's learn that press. Let's learn that take up the slack, so you can, as soon, you can take it before, but as soon, if you have to in a self-defense scenario, but as soon as you get out there and you're to full extension, you've got that sight picture, and you're bang.
Yeah.
Bang. And then when I have them, like in my women's group, they learn all kinds of stuff. And when they do that, the new ones that haven't done it before, it's a little nerve-wracking for them at first. And sometimes I'll start doing that just without even teaching them the draw first. Let's pick up the gun, let's get the grip, and we're just standing on the firing line. Let's press it out. Let's press it out. Let's press it out, right? And that's the way we start that and get him used to it. It makes a lot of them really nervous till they figure it out, but you have to practice it and learn to trust yourself. And some guns are, I won't say they're safer, but if they've got a heavier trigger, right? I don't know would you deem, let's talk about that. Would you deem a heavier trigger safer than a finely tuned trigger or not? Because sometimes it's really hard on a heavier trigger to figure out where everything is.
I would say to somebody that is new to firearms, new to training, so they've got some training, they're about midway into it, a heavier trigger is probably safer for them because they haven't done enough reps on making that fine muscle memory on that gun.
Yeah, they get out there and whack.
Where it can be, I've been involved in a couple of defensive shoots, right? I don't remember the trigger press. I don't. I really don't.
That's why we learned
I got
it,
my
though.
hits and I was good to go, but
yeah.
I don't remember that trigger press. And then, recent experience where I brought over that Smith & Wesson CSX, that would be dangerous for me because we're waiting for 5 minutes for the gun to go off.
Yeah.
Because the trigger is just so darn heavy until you really spend some time behind it and learn it. For a new person, I don't think they're going to feel that trigger press. They're not quite there yet, but when they start getting a few more years, maybe a few thousand more dry fires, that all starts coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
And then you switch up the trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's all about being familiar with your firearm, right? And so, like you asked, why I have a Glock, besides it being the best firearm ever, it's because that's what I was trained on. So I stick with that, and ultimately I think that's the safer route until I invest the time. If I find another firearm, then I'm going to invest that time in receiving more training and kind of changing up some things as far as familiarity with the firearm. Until then, the Glock's kind of, for me, I feel safer in that's what I'm used to.
And like you said, that's what you started with, right?
Yeah.
So you've learned the trigger, and there's, I think a Glock trigger can be highly improved on, but there's a lot of people that have learned it and they go with it. And I'll be honest with you, if someone who's put time behind their gun or behind a Glock, like they're probably going to shoot it way better than me because they know the trigger. I can't get over the whole feels like I'm stepping on a plum type of weird, mushy. You know what I'm talking about. It's weird. It's just freaking. It's not clean. It's dirty. It's just weird.
It takes me about 3 to 4 shots to stop punching them low left.
Yeah. So what we're gonna say is Eli shoots a dirty gun. That thing's got a dirty trigger in it.
See, we've been hunting down an acronym because I got Magnum, you're Master Blaster.
This is dirty.
Dirty Eli.
Dirty Glock.
Should we go? Should we go?
Eli, like dirty
should we
Harry.
go? Dirty gun or dirty trigger?
Oh, I don't know.
We'll work on it.
Gotta find something for you.
Yeah, we got to find something for you. Everyone's got a nickname around here. Everybody does. But so let's talk about, since we're talking about, like, I want to say fundamentals, but like basic things that you heard of, that you always heard about when you first got a gun, of do's or do nots, right? Let's talk about this. So I've actually ran into people, and recently and years ago, right? What do they carry in their gun for defensive rounds? Like freaking full metal jackets. And so I don't recommend that. Okay. Full metal jackets will they kill someone? Well, yeah, they will, but they aren't the most effective to do so, right? What they do is they'll put a little tiny wound channel, the size of a pencil, or if you're shooting a 45, maybe like a marker, right? But it's going to go straight, and it's meant to go, and there's a good chance it'll keep on going. And there might be collateral damage, right? People behind them, people around them. I mean, that's not the best thing to do. I mean, I can go and shoot through all kinds of stuff on my range, and then I can go out there and pick up these, looks like I could reload some of them, right? And pull these full metal jacket rounds out of the dirt. I think a person should carry a good, high quality defensive round, typically going to be a hollow point. That's what those are going to be. And something that'll run in your gun. And, I've carried the same gun for many, many, many years. And I know you've gotten rid of guns for less, or for this reason. When I get this new gun, I'll probably sit down and I'll figure out what I want to carry as far as defensive rounds are concerned. And I'll probably run through a couple hundred of them. Make sure that stupid thing ain't going to choke up, right? I don't think that it will, but I'm going to make sure, especially if I'm going to, depend my life on it, right? If my life depends on that functioning when I need it, hopefully I never have to, but I want to make sure that it works. Don't cheap out, man. Don't carry those defensive rounds. Don't carry those full metal jackets for defensive purposes. You are responsible for every round that you fire out of your firearm, and that's plain and simple. And I think it's ridiculous when people say that they carry those things. And even some of the funny defensive rounds that aren't hollow points, they scare me.
I was actually just going to touch on that because
they scare me. They're gimmick.
If your gun does not function, Glock, without using full metal jackets, Glock, it's time for a new gun.
Well, or let's say this: if you are, and James will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you carry a Glock and you tout them as the best firearm in the world, and you absolutely love this gun, And you talk about how it just goes. It never fails you. It just runs, and you've put 30, 40, 50,000 rounds through this thing. But then I look at your magazine that you carry for defensive purposes, and you have hollow points in there, but the very first 4 rounds you're going to shoot at that thing are full metal jackets. And you tell me that it's because you want to make sure this gun is going to function. You don't have faith in your freaking gun. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to me. And it's probably going way too far. I probably shouldn't have said anything. But I mean, and I'm not picking on you.
Just trust issues, not no faith, just a little trust issue.
So everybody here knows I'm a 1911 guy, and that was one of the big goofy caveats that I used to hear with guys that would run 1911s. They go, they're always this, and they're, you know what? 1911s choke like crazy if they're not properly tuned to hollow point ammunition, and that sort of stuff.
And I think it's fantastic.
They will run reliably
Yeah.
on proper ball ammunition. However, you do not carry proper ball ammunition in a defensive shoot because it's big, it's slow, but it goes a long ways.
Well, let's talk about, and that's what I respect about you. Like, we gave you a hard time for 1911s, right? Because they'll choke on hollow points unless they're finely tuned. So you've actually said before when we were having this debate, you said not everyone should carry a 1911 because most of the people that carry them are not going to work on them. They're not going to tune them. They're not going to make them run. And typically every 1911 you buy, you do some kind of work to it, right?
There are very,
most of them.
Very few exceptions, and I've owned a lot of 1911s.
Most people don't do that, and that's why you see them choke, right? They think that if they're spending $1,000, $900 on a gun, that it's gonna run like clockwork. You're not gonna have any problems. That's not always true with 1911s.
No, it's not. Generally, it's 90% of the times it's one of two things: cheap magazines, which they're getting crappy magazines and they're just terrible, and the second thing is the extractor tension. If it's not done right or if it's not beveled right, the rest of the gun will generally run. It can run loose, it can run tight, it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. But those two things, if they're not tuned properly, they're not feeding properly, you've got issues. And I am glad to see that there are a lot of new 1911 manufacturers out there. Even the Turkish ones seem to be getting it right now.
Right.
Kimber still can't figure it out for whatever reason.
The old Kimbers were great.
The super old, built back in Oregon, were great. Some of the newer ones I'm starting to see out of their CDP line because they're custom fitted line. Mm-hmm. They run a bit better. But my go-tos, if you're just going to buy one off the lot, is going to be a Dan Wesson to start with. Most Springfields, especially if you're buying something out of their out of a classic line, I wouldn't buy anything that's new right off the top because it tends to choke really quick. And then go up from there. If you want a cheap one that's going to run, Rock Island's been doing them a long time. I've never had bad luck with a Rock Island, and from what I understand, the TSOS are starting to produce guns that actually run. I would say throw their magazines away as soon as you get them and go get Wilson's or something.
And and I'm not saying they're not out there, and I'm not trying to just tout my striker-fired guns. I'm just talking about the guns that I personally had experience with, and as dirty and as crappy and hard on those stupid things as I am, because I'm not nice to them. When it rained the other day, like I haven't cleaned those. I just freaking left them on the table, let them dry out.
That was a couple of weeks ago.
I let the temperature, I let the temperature like level out, and I put them back in the safe. It didn't, whatever. Don't do as I say, not as I do type of thing. But honestly, I've run all kinds of ammo through my guns, and unless it's failed because it was dirty, and I have had that happen, and that's on me. But I've never had issue like with these striker fireds that I have, like functioning with ammo, running ammo. I've never had them. I've never looked and said, well, I can't run that because it jams up when I run that. It just doesn't happen. I mean, what's your take on striker fireds? I know you've actually had one that you didn't really care for a whole lot. Well, you like the gun, but it didn't run ammo.
I hate to say it, but like Glocks they're great.
They'll run forever.
Firearm.
Yeah.
There's a caveat. With a 1911, you have to tune it. With a Glock, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Don't mess with it unless you're doing something like, a Timney trigger, right? It's a box trigger. It drops in, and it does not affect anything else in that gun.
Mm-hmm.
A Glock will do everything you need it to do for as long as you want to do it, and you can run any garbage you want it except lead ammo because it has polygonal rifling.
Yeah, bullshit. You can do that too.
They're new ones. They have the marksman barrel. You can run whatever you want.
No, I got an old one. It's a pain in the butt to clean though.
I love striker. I do like striker fires. I am really. There's something about polymer that I can't keep. And I've owned a lot of polymer guns, and no matter what, I always get rid of them. It doesn't seem to, no matter how good they are, how great
Doesn't
they've
feel
been,
right to you.
No, it
Doesn't
does
feel
not.
classic.
It does not. I think I have to have that mix of new and old.
James is a classic.
Which actually, I still own 3 M&Ps
You're an old-
that are in polymer, but I bought the new metal M&P simply because it was metal.
James is an old soul.
I'm an old fart.
You're an old soul. You're an old fart. But I don't know. I've had. So I saw this thing. Actually, I was gonna. Dang it! I thought I had a soundbite, and I was gonna put this soundbite in there, and I didn't know if it was true or not. It's on a TikTok video, and I'll send it to you guys. And you
Must be true.
It must be true.
I'm
But
gonna
actually,
rely on this one.
actually, what it is they were just. I think it was some kind of it was a podcast. I don't know what podcast it was. I've never seen or heard of the guys before, but they were talking about guns. And there's an older gentleman there, and he was talking. They asked him about firearms, right? And what he thought was, I don't know, I can't remember what the question was, but he's talking about Glocks. And he said at the time, and I don't know because I don't know, it was before my intro into this stuff. He said that when Glocks came out, he said Glocks are very dependable. But he said when Glocks came out, they were kind of like the high point of the firearms world. What High Point is now. Like High Point will run. It's crappy, but it'll run. And he said and it's cheap, and everyone's got one. A lot of people have one. But he said when Glock came out, that's what they were. They were cheap. Everyone had one, and they're like a High Point. They just run and run and run. So he called Glock, like in their first intro, they were the High Point. I mean, is that true? Have you heard about that? He said they were dirt cheap and everyone had one. Is that a true statement? That's
Basically what was explained to us in the academy. It was mainly because they were cheaper than the I'm forgetting what we carried. I just forgot what we were carrying before. But yeah, we were told basically it was cheaper, and then the parts to replace them were cheaper as well. Yeah. So it was just kind of it allowed the expense. The budget to go down
more,
basically.
Bigger bang for their buck.
Yeah.
So were you? I mean,
6 hour. That's what we were carrying.
When did Glocks first make their appearance?
If I'm not
Do we know? Is
mistaken,
80s?
I think it's like 1981.
I mean, were they super cheap in 1981? Because you weren't a cop in 81. I know that.
Well, let me see. I was negative 4 years old.
Yeah.
But
you're the youngest one here.
compared to the guns of the time, right? So everything back then, you had the Smith & Wesson series. Their double actions were all steel, so they were all milled and machined. You had the SIG, which had the P226, was still relatively new, and it was actually just coming out of the P220 single stack, which we know is a 45 now, but the original P220 was a 9mm.
Right.
The double stack, so you had the 226 first coming into their own around that time. And then you had 1911s, and you had revolvers. You didn't have a whole lot of auto stuff out there. And then you had Beretta, right? And Beretta had already picked up the military contract.
They were craptastic.
Yeah. They ran as long as you maintained them.
Yeah, yeah.
But with the Glocks, I mean, they were inexpensive. They held a ton of, and they held more than anything else out there.
And they
Everything else was
probably,
15
I would
miles
imagine, because they were the first polymer gun, right? I mean, no, they weren't.
They were the first mass produced.
They were okay. HK was the first polymer, right? Yeah. So, but I mean, coming in and being like this new mold, right? I mean, kind of to a certain extent, kind of would have to be priced pretty cheap, I would imagine, because they have to get into the freaking market, right?
You know
you could take them
Glock's,
past security in airports because they were all plastic.
You know Gaston Glock's history?
Wasn't it like he made it like a garage? Or something,
it's
didn't
actually
he?
way cooler than that.
Okay,
right?
well, tell him.
So I was gonna stir up some storms on you guys one day on there with the history of HK and the history of Glock.
HK is way better.
And
shut your mouth. This is an HK country.
There's a historical problem with them. But as far as
I don't give a shit. They make good guns.
the guns are running off. Well, they ought to. I mean, they worked for the Nazis, so.
Who did it?
But Gaston Glock, so he was actually a big fitness guy, like like swimming and all this kind of stuff back in
He was
the day.
CrossFit before CrossFit was cool.
Pretty much. Him and his wife owned a business, and they made military, magazine pouches, grenade pouches. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they even made grenades for the Swiss military.
Yeah.
And
Just a little mom and pop operation.
yeah, pretty much.
Slinging grenades.
Out of the garage.
But yeah, he's like, well, I can make a gun, and he came up with this thing, and it was like really hard for him to sell. And then he was working with another guy who actually tried to have him assassinated, and because he was in good shape, he actually beat the living piss out of the guy that was trying to kill him.
That's why I run 5 days a week.
And subdued the guy, and then he ended up retaining his entire company, and they built the Glock from there. And their first sale was to the Swedish military. So it kind of just spread through the East from there, and then didn't hit us until years later. But
Right.
yeah, he had kind of a cool story.
That's cool.
How did he get into making the firearm from grenades? Was he his background just
He
as
was
an
just-
engineer,
yeah.
a mechanic kind of?
Was he just proving that he could do it?
No, it was another income stream for him, and he figured he could do it. It wasn't that complicated.
Just watch a couple YouTube videos.
Flipping through some manuscripts.
Just look through the Sears catalog, and I was like, I think I could do that.
It can't be that hard.
Well, look at Ronnie Barrett, right? Built the M107, probably the most iconic 50 cal in the world. And what did he do for a living? He was a watchmaker.
Yeah.
Well, I heard. That was the case too with a lot of was that vehicle makers too. It was watchmaker. Yeah, I
John
guess.
Moses Browning, his dad,
Yeah.
made stuff. He only actually made 2 rifles. John Moses Browning made his first rifle with his 8-year-old brother out of parts that were just laying around the garage. He strapped them to like a 2x4 board. They drilled a hole in the back of the barrel, packed it full of powder, and they shoved a bunch of crap down the barrel, whatever they could get. And he would hold the gun while they were out turkey shooting, and his brother would take a lit match and spark it off. They popped 3 turkeys on their first run with his first gun. So it was pretty cool. He made the first gas-powered lever-action rifle.
That's cool.
So, yeah, he had a pretty cool history of guns all around.
Wow.
The first machine gun used in a U.S. war was built by John Moses Browning, the Spanish-American War. So, and I think they actually still run it, the M30. So they still run that old beast.
Well, speaking of firearms, we got some. We always talk about the Canic on the show, so we can't overlook the freaking the Canic.
Sponsored by Canik.
Yeah. Oh man, I wish. So Canic actually has their. They brought out their rival. That's the Meta. Is that the Meta that's all funny shaped and designed?
No, the rival has got the coolest cuts and designs.
Yeah. No. I mean the Miami version. Is that the Meta? That's the Meta.
Yeah, it's the Meta.
So they brought out the Meta, and it's like this like special edition. There's 3,000 of each, and you need to take a look. It's like Miami. We're gonna call it Miami Vice.
I think it's Miami. Is how you pronounce
Miami.
it?
That's
Miami.
right. Yeah, that's according to Will Smith. So, yes. I mean, check them out, man. They're painted up. They actually look kind of cool. They have the daytime version, and they have what they call the nighttime version. And I'm really trying to get the Cajun Cowboy to purchase one of these because I'm not going to.
Get him the daytime version because it's got the blazing pink holster.
No.
I would love to see that out on the range.
Oh yeah, that'd be sweet. He said he's holding out. He's holding out for the New Orleans. So I don't know. And we had a discussion with him the other day on the phone about this. Like, wonder why they're doing this. He's like, well, because they know that the Americans will buy them.
That would be cool if they just did. You know how we did with the quarters in like different states. Like just
that'd be cool.
Do one every state.
Can you imagine Idaho's?
What would it be?
Be the Sawtooth, man. Actually, they'd probably be a freaking potato.
or they would just call it the regular one and say, yeah, it's shaped like Idaho.
Well, actually, I don't think Canic would come out with one for Idaho. I think they'd probably pass that over to Glock, and it would be the potato.
Yeah,
And yes, that was a dig at you, Eli.
could you imagine the New York one? It doesn't come with any magazines. It's got a trigger lock that you can't
Yeah.
open the gun up.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. It's all welded shut. Barrels plugged.
It's all,
And
it's
it
got a
charges-
big orange cap on the end, so you know it can't be used.
And it charges you taxes.
Yeah.
Every time you touch it, you gotta put in a quarter.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. But, well, hey, I want to tell you guys thanks for showing up today for the podcast. It's fun. This is a fun podcast. We've been doing, well, they're all good. And I will say this, according to Libsyn, and this is the company that I upload the podcast to, there's like 260 podcasts.
Oh.
And I think there's more, because I don't know if they're all on Libsyn, because maybe they are. I don't remember. I feel like there should be more. But anyhow, that equates me to doing this podcast now for like 5 years. Does that seem about right? You've only been around for like 3.
3 years, yeah. So at least
Yeah.
3 that I know of.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of podcasts out there to listen to, and go back and listen to them all, and let's get the numbers up. I like getting the numbers up, but if you do listen to the podcast, again, always thank you for the support. Share it on your social media. I know I say that all the time, but that's really what helps a bunch. If you share this, get other people to subscribe to it. Share it on all your social medias. Tell everyone what a good time you have listening to this. And even if the show drives you to drinking, it's whatever, man. It's another excuse to drink beer. Go do that. It doesn't matter to me. Just go ahead and subscribe and listen, and let's get the numbers up.
There's that conversation. Grab me the bottle. I got to hit the shop and listen to the podcast.
That's right.
Consider us your drinking buddy.
That's right. And I'm sure I piss you guys off. I know I'm really good at pissing people off everywhere I go. And in fact, my radio show, I piss people off all over the valley. If you want to call me, if you want to text me any comments, you can get a hold of me. Area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. And I think we'll probably try to do another one midweek. If you're around, you can be around, Eli?
Yeah, I'll be around.
And then we've got a big, is it this weekend we have our class? We have a big class this weekend. 31 people.
Yeah.
31 people. Fingers crossed they all show up. We got our work cut out for us. We haven't had a big class like that for quite a little while.
I'm bringing body armor.
You bring it. Don't do that. We got to show a little faith in our students.
I'll stand 10 feet behind.
Yeah. He's touching them with a stick. Hey, you're doing that wrong. Fix it. So until then, we'll see you guys later. Probably try to catch up with you midweek. Everyone have a good Monday. Have a good Tuesday. Bye.